Today I will be talking about STAR technique and how to answer behavioral interview questions. But I hope my example today that I will be talking about will be helpful for you all, and which will help you to navigate your interview process in the future. Just a quick disclaimer before I dive deep into details. The scenario I'm going to share here is not reflecting my previous employer and is not reflecting the job that I was doing there. Just to keep things confidentially and for the security perspective, I am not going to share today all the details as it happened in reality, but rather I'm going to modify and just create a fictional story and adjust it to the STAR format. And how would you usually answer during the interview? So it's just a quick disclaimer. Some of the bits and parts from that story might be true or might not be true. So this is just a fictional one that I'm going to share. And also I want to give a little bit of background. When I was interviewing at AWS, I was an application support engineer back in that time. And my scenario will be around support engineer role, what support engineer was doing and what was the challenge and what was the situation, task and action and result I was facing at that time. Again, this is completely a fictional story and it does not reflect my employer and the work that I was doing during my time in that company. So Ashish, please, let's move on to the next slide. So we see definitions of situation, task, action, and result. I'd like to walk through my story just to kind of bump everything here, and then I'm going to chop into details of each of the story and explain where was the situation, what is task here, what is the result, what is the action and result. So again, the background is that the person who is interviewee is application support engineer at company X, and that person is being asked about the situation where something unexpected has happened under a tight deadline and you have to perform. What was the challenge? How did you resolve it? So, and the story is about this. Couple of weeks ago, as part of my job scope, I was performing a migration action for one of our biggest and global customer whose environment used to be in the US region, but suddenly they decided to move to EU because they are closing their market in the US. Migration was planned from my US colleagues to be performed partially in the US and in the UK due to the time zone. All of a sudden, at 6 a.m., I received a call from my manager saying that, hey, we hit the issue. We took the snapshot, but we're not able to restore the snapshot. It's 6 a.m. in the morning in the UK, and customer will be up and running their application at 9 a.m. We need to solve this issue as soon as possible, and we need to somehow make it happen before customer actually realizes and before it actually affects customer's workload. And back in that time, my manager asked to check the restore snapshot option every 15 minutes. Because it was before COVID time, I was not able and I was not allowed to work from home. I had to go to the office at some point and work from the office. So I informed my manager that my office commute will take around 30 minutes. And what if I miss every 15 minutes to restore the snapshot during this time? Although my manager was okay with this issue being me during the commute time, I still thought that I need to do something more for my customer so they are not impacted with the with this issue. I ordered a taxi, and I connected my laptop to the hotspot from my mobile data, and I was performing restore and restore snapshot while sitting in the taxi. When I arrived to work, I started immediately again restore the snapshot, but it wasn't working at all. No matter how many times I tried, it didn't work. And then I quickly realized that a few months ago, when I was collaborating with our infrastructure team and trying to understand what is actually the underlying root cause of some of the errors, some of the problems we're receiving as a support team, I remember that there is one region which is under revision in Europe, and I thought, and it's not being done, so it's not being completed for migration. It's just something that infrastructure team is working. And I thought, let me maybe restore the snapshot in that region. Yes, it's not the same region that my manager asked to perform the restore, but it is something still in the EU, and it still might help my customer's application to be up and running right on time. It was 8 a.m. Back in that time, and I didn't tell my manager that I'm going to do this, because if she knew, she would probably say no, because it is still under revision and we don't know what kind of issues we might hit if we restore customers' live data in that new region. So what I did, I took the snapshot and then I restored in that new region. Snapshot was restored successfully, and by 9 a.m. customer was able to use the application as they were predicting. So when my manager, who was based in the US back in that time, started her work, I told her the story, what happened and what did I do. I knew it was something not expected and something probably not 100% right at that time, but I explained to her that I knew that this might resolve the issue, without telling the customer that we hit specific limitation or specific issues, which doesn't give the customer that reliability and that confidence, and of course potentially it might hurt the trust that we built with the customer, given the fact that it was a big customer across the globe. My manager was very understanding. She appreciated my bias for action, as we say it now in Amazon. And back in that time, I didn't know that it was bias for action. And of course, she asked me to document everything what I did and the reason why I did that. And of course, I connected with infrastructure team to understand why initially the restore wasn't happening in one region specifically. And then working together with infrastructure team, we realized that we didn't have enough CPU and memory back in that region, the initial EU region. And the one region which was under revision had enough space and enough memory to perform the migration. So what happened is that the results, I documented everything, the problem, the solution, and the steps that I did. I connected with the infrastructure team to understand what is the limitation and in which cases we need to contact infrastructure team for approval during the migration. I conducted lunch and learn. I conducted lunch and learn with support team, which was across US, Canada, and UK. Plus infrastructure team, which was based in the US, and I ran the session where we were exploring the options, in which cases we need infrastructure's approval before actually scheduling and informing the customer about the migration. And also after all of this, once the customer's environment was migrated to the new region, of course, after some period, we were able, once we increased the memory in the initial region, I was able to migrate back to that initial region. So the result was that everything that what we did during that time, everything that I took ownership of, that is that it's not just the scope of your job that you are supposed to do, like check the restore snapshot every 15 minutes, make sure it happens. It doesn't happen. Sometimes it doesn't because we didn't have enough memory, and me trying every 15 minutes would not resolve the memory issues, right? But what actually helped is that collaborating across the team, understanding the underlying root cause, what actually was what was causing that issue, and taking extra risk. I understand at that time my manager would have been probably angry at me, like, why did you do that? It could have harmed the customer's data, but because it was a snapshot, it wasn't. So even if it fails in the new region, I knew that I still can roll back. I still can keep the customer's migration back in that region. And we could have just notified the customer that, sorry, we hit the technical issue and we couldn't perform the migration back in that time. But I didn't want to do that because, again, it hurts the customer trust. It hurts the image and how we position ourselves to our customers. So this was the story. This was the result, what I did. And this was the kind of based on the star format that I explained. Now I'm going to chop into all the details, like based on this, based on the situation, task, action, and result that you see on the screen. So let's start with the situation. Detail the background. As I said a couple of months ago, and I'm saying like where and when it happened, right? And I'm providing you the context. A couple of months ago, as a scope of my job, it is important to highlight it is your job to perform a migration. And also expect, if you're interviewing for AWS or Amazon, there will be follow-up questions. So the person who is interviewing you will not sit and say, wow, that was amazing, let me hire you. It doesn't happen, right? They will dive deep into details. For example, they will ask, what kind of migration was that? Why you are performing migrations? How often you are performing migrations? Have you had these sorts of issues before? And why your manager called you? Don't you have any system, any process? And then you say, no, we didn't have back in that time any process, any pager duty, anything. So as a part of the result, I took ownership. So now I talk like this, I took ownership, right? Back in that time, I was saying, no, we didn't have any process. And I was the one who tried to bring any process to this process by leveraging third-party tool like PagerDuty. And when support engineer is hitting any problems with migration, it gets automatically notified to infrastructure team and to the support team and up in the hierarchy as well. Previously, we didn't have that process. Now we do have. So just make sure that whenever the follow-up questions are happening, you are comfortable and confident enough to meet these questions and to answer them properly. This was the situation. And then task. Describe what was the challenge and expectations, right? So the challenge was that snapshot couldn't restore back in time. And my expectations from me, try every 15 minutes. God knows, maybe it will happen, right? It is technology. It fails all the time. We never know. And what needed to be done? Migration needed to be completed by 9 a.m. UK time. So customers starting to work at 9 a.m. They should not experience any issues in their platform. Why? Because customers, they decided to close their market in the US and they are migrating all their workload in EMEA, in EU. So what was the action? Yeah, what did I do? How did I do it? And what tools did I use? So be prepared. Like during my scenario, I didn't tell you what tools did I use when I was checking, right? But interviewer can ask you, what did you use? What tool did you use? And I said, Postman. It was an API call. I was checking, and then I was seeing and it was a JSON format. So be prepared to dive deep into details. And then interviewer can ask you, did you check maybe your API token is expired, right? If you're really using that tool, you will know that, yes, there is an API tool and there is an token that could have been expired probably, or you may have hit other sorts of issues related with Postman, not specifically with that application, right? So there will be follow-up questions. They won't be you just talking great, successful story. And again, it is not supposed to be great and successful all in all. Like in my story, for example, the one that I told you, as I said, my manager could have been really angry at me because I performed the migration in the region which is under revision, which is not ready, and which is not probably allowed to migrate customers there. But it was my as an emergency exit to put something there to keep the lights green for a couple of hours or for one day at least until we resolve this issue and get to the bottom why it's not working. And then once we resolved it, once we increased the limitation and the memory, of course we were able to go back. But expect from a hiring manager or whoever is interviewing you to ask you, what if your manager said no? What would you do? Would you still do the same thing if you go back? This is the most important question probably every interviewers are asking. Would you do the same thing? And what I answered back in that time, I said, yes, I would do the same. And then the other question was that, why? Because it was the right thing to do for my customer. I understand it might have violated some of the company's rules, but I knew even if it fails in that region, I can roll back. And it was like my safest option to tell the customer we didn't perform the migration because we had technical issue. But of course, it's not a good thing to tell your customers, right? You're not being like customer obsessed in this case, and you are not performing your 110% for your customer. So this was my action point. And what was the result, of course? Accomplishment. Yes, I completed the migration successfully. Customer didn't notice a thing at the end of the day. But there will be, again, follow-up questions from the interviewer that, did you get any recognition for the work that you did? Did I? I didn't. And what was your reaction when you didn't get any recognition? What did you do? What did you feel? How did you feel that you didn't get any recognition? So all these questions were asked, and I said, I didn't expect any recognition. Why you didn't expect? Do you think what you did does not deserve the recognition? And I said, no, I think it does deserve, but it doesn't mean whatever I do for recognition or for something from my manager or from my peers to recognize and to clap. No, I did it because of it was the right thing to do for my customer. And if it happens again, I would do the same again. I would still order a taxi. I did not expense the taxi money because I didn't do it for any other reasons. I did it for my customer because I knew this is a big customer, even for a small customer, doesn't matter. It will affect my customer's workload and it might damage my customer's trust that I built over time. And as a whole company, we built it over time. Yes, I didn't receive any recognition. I didn't need that. Fine. If I receive, of course, it's a nice thing to receive. If I didn't, okay, it is my job to keep my customer obsession at the highest level. That's how I work. I can't work differently. And savings, what did I save for the company, right? It's not about money, right? What I saved for the company is that I documented everything what happened in more details. I published it in our internal tool. I published it and then I ran lunch and learn session with infrastructure team and with our support team. I also own the process to have pager duty, where if the migration fails, it gets notified. Notified infrastructure team and support team as well at the same time. So it's not just support who are using who are using something and who need to deal with all this with all these problems. And also, of course, these things can happen, right? It is technology. It is important to keep your morale during the interview, not just saying that, yes, it was difficult, I managed, look at me, I'm just a star, I did this, I did that. No, it is important to keep your morale that, yes, this thing happened, and it's not because there was no process, it was company's fault, or it was incompetent something. No, these things can happen everywhere, anywhere, and it is crucially important to keep it in mind and have that attitude and mentality that wherever you go, no matter is it a startup, is it a big company, is it a medium company, no matter where you go, anything, if it's related to technology, anything can happen. Absolutely anything. And it is important, your attitude. What do you do in this case? And what did you do in that case? Did you just sit and do what you've been asked for? Like check every 15 minutes, check if it restored happens or not. Yeah, I mean, if I did that, of course my manager wouldn't say anything, and I would say, yeah, that's what you asked me and that's what I did, right? It is just a narrow scope of your job that you performed. Yeah, well done, that's what you are paid for, right? But what you as a leader, because everyone here, when we're working, we are leaders, we take actions, we make decisions every day for our customers, for our colleagues, for our leaders, and we try to deliver the results based on our customer obsession, of course. What did you do in that case? Right? Everything is failing. What are you doing? What you are prioritizing? Are you prioritizing just business? Did I do it because of the business, because of the company I'm working for? Or do I do it for my customer, which is also affecting the business, of course? So customer is not just the random people passing by, right? It is my company's customer. It means I'm owning it. It is my customer too. So it is important to keep this mentality, to be humble, that whatever happened there is not X person's fault, this team's fault. I don't know. This is just a company. They haven't predicted. Oh, they didn't have a process in place. Well, great. Then own it. They didn't have a process. It means it's your time to shine, your time to step in, own it, make a process, and be known for that, right? You cannot even imagine how much I learned just based on that story. And it is a fictional story, of course, right? Just like having a process, bringing something, doing something, taking extra actions. And no matter, again, if it's a small company, startup, or a big company, you will experience the same thing over and over again. And you will be the one who will make this decision, who will learn on it. And you will feel at the end proud that there was a gap. You didn't sit and complain like, oh, this company doesn't meet my expectations. I thought this is blah, blah, blah. It will happen, blah, blah, blah. No, it doesn't happen. It's not. It's probably in the movies or in an ideal and pinky world, in a fluffy unicorn world, as my daughter loves to say, right? Everywhere you will have any gaps, anything that is broken, the page is not updated. Great, it's your opportunity. Just take it and do it. It doesn't mean that it has to completely be broken, so you are required to fix it. Yeah, if it's your job, then do it. But if it's not, it means you're going outside of the scope of your job that you are required to do. So in this case, you just take it, own the process, collaborate across teams, learn and be curious. So at that time, I didn't even notice that it was learn and be curious, or it was bias for action, or it was customer obsession, right? Or it was disagree and commit, right? My manager knew definitely that there is a new region under revision, right? It was just me who decided for the customer to do it. Again, it could have failed, right? And you will have this question in the interview. What if failed? What customer lost the data? Were you sure that it will not affect your customer for 100% and it will not affect their live data? And I said, yes, I was sure it will not affect. It will, I can roll back. I had mechanisms, I had tools. Again, be prepared to answer these questions as well. What tools did you have? What mechanisms did you have? to answer all these questions. Again, this was my story. This was a fictional story. Again, it does not represent my previous employment or previous job that I did, but it was crafted and designed for this session. I was an application support engineer, and the work that I was doing on a day-to-day job, of course, I will not disclose here for confidentiality reasons, but this is something as an example you can take it and just to kind of tailor your own story and understand what you can do with your role and in your current role and going forward. Thank you.